Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to be a bit of an extended video for today's video because with all the longer range updates that we'll be doing over the weekend and of course the bank holiday historic video, haven't actually had a look at the weather for next week to 10 days and the shorter medium range time frame. It's Thursday, so we're going to have a bit of an extended look at everything that's going on for today's video. We're going to start off with the central temperature just to bring you up to date with that. So we've gone very warm now for May. We currently stand provisionally at 13.3. That really is a very warm month indeed now. That's an anomaly of 2.2 degrees above average provisional to yesterday, 29th of May. That may tick down a little bit. It may finish up just under 13 degrees, but I think the anomaly will be around 2 degrees above average, whatever happens. So it certainly has been a very warm, or it is a very warm May indeed. Right, these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMDF here on the top, the GFS, have a look at that in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure, being drowned by jet stream running above. Blue extrapolates to low pressure and red to high pressure. These are the mean flow charts for next week, 10 days. It takes us to around the 10th of June. And the ECDF is very unsettled here. We've got a deep trough of below average heights, low pressure out to west and northwest of the country, bringing the jet stream through and a little bit to the south of the country, if anything. That looks really unsettled, actually, as we're going through the first week to 10 days of June. GFS is very similar. The trough is there out to the northwest, quite a deep one. Subtle difference is that it's got above average heights actually over and to the south and east of the country, ridging up to this area of high pressure city to the north of Scandinavia. Same sort of idea, but the upshot is that the jet stream is pushed a little bit further northwards, and consequently the rain bands with this, it is a deep trough, with this deep trough out to the northwest, are affecting more northern and western parts of the country, whereas the south and the east, close to that area of above average heights that we've got going on just there, the south and east would be drier and potentially warmer as well, because you'll be dragging up the air from the southwest with that scenario too. However, they both are sort of with the idea that the Atlantic might be unleashed a little bit through the opening week to 10 days of June. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. So this is the 1st of June just here, and for the first few days of June it looks like the temperatures are actually creeping up. So around Friday it's turning quite warm again, might turn a little bit thundery. Over weekend the temperatures cool down back to average, and then as we go through the first week and into the second week of June, this period just here, the overall idea I think is to turn things warmer again. Now there are some very warm members, if not hot members of the GFS ensembles through this second week of June, these members that are all up here, but also there are some quite cool members as well. So I think it's a little bit split as to what's going to happen as we go through into the second week of June. Will we pull up some hotter air from the south, or will we sink the jet stream down across the country with a trough of low pressure? And you saw that split really between the height anomaly on the high anomaly chart between the ECMDF and GFS. The ECM wants to sink that trough down across the country, but GFS is a little bit closer, and we see it within the ensembles to pulling up some hotter air from the south as we're going into the second week of June. So quite an uncertain period actually coming up. Temperature anomalies for the next week are coming out a little bit warmer than average. It is quite cold across Scandinavia and northeastern parts of Russia though, but for most parts of Europe, coming out a little bit warmer than average. Precipitation looks like this, a real mixed bag, so it's a bit wetter than average for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a bit drier than average or close to average really for England and Wales. France and interestingly parts of Spain looking quite wet in the next week. In America, it's still cooler than average over in the east of the states and warmer than average out in the west. So a real split down the middle for the United States in terms of temperature in the next week. For precipitation, very dry down in the southwestern part of the states. They're turning drier again around California and New Mexico after what was a wetter winter there. Otherwise, many parts of the states coming out with average or maybe even slightly wetter than average precipitation for the next week. Let's say we might have another go at getting some thunder going on Friday. So this is the GFS chart for Friday. We've got low pressure out to the west. We're still trying to drag up some quite warm air from the south. So have a look at your air temperatures. You see there is a fairly big gradient across the country, but the +5, I should say, isotherm is across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The +10 isotherm is across South East England. So quite a warm air mass down in the south. There's a frontal system as well that's the dividing line. There it is with a band of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland on Friday morning. And as we go through into Friday evening, it looks like showers are becoming quite widespread. They may be thundery showers as well, possibly even thunderstorms. Quite warm and humid in the southeast on Friday afternoon, with temperatures into the mid-20s Celsius. So we might get some lively weather coming up again at the end of the week. Notice we're very close to some really hot weather across France, by the way. Temperatures there going into the upper 20s and low 30s Celsius. So if this front here, and you see it just there, was to stall on Friday, it can actually turn quite hot down in the southeast, but the GFS isn't really suggesting that it wants to keep these proper hot temperatures over on the other side of the channel, but it's not all that far away. Now, once that's out of the way, it looks like things are turning cooler for the weekend. So we saw it on the GFS ensembles. Temperatures are dropping back to average for the weekend. And it looks like it's turning quite unsettled over the weekend as well. This area of low pressure gets closer to us. And then into next week, we start the week on an unsettled note, most definitely. Up to middle part of the week, we're trying to build a bit of pressure here to the south, but this area of low pressure out to the west-northwest, but it's quite a deep one. That's bringing wet and windy weather into the northwest. This area of high pressure wants to keep mostly dry and warm weather going in the south. And I think that's the difference as to what's going to happen around the middle part of next week. If this high pressure intensifies and pushes northwards, then that'll start to drag up warm air, mostly dry conditions to the south. But if this area of low pressure out to the northwest Scotland is the driver, then that's going to keep things unsettled and cool. And that's what this latest run of the GFS does. This is the 6 o'clock run, and it does look quite unsettled. We actually finish up with a dartboard area of low pressure close to the country at 980 millibars. That's a very deep area of low pressure for June. On the 10th of June, bringing wet and windy weather across the country. ECNDF, we know this is going to be unsettled as well from the height anomalies. So again, we might have some thundery weather Friday into Saturday. Once that's out of the way, then we're into these cooler, fresher westerly winds bringing showers into the weekend. Early next week, again, there's that build of pressure trying to build up from France, but this area of low pressure is a deep one that's out in the Atlantic. So any ridge that tries to build very quickly flattened off as this low pressure brings us a wet and windy spell around the middle of next week. This is quite interesting. This is Thursday, the 8th of June. This is for General Election Day, of course, and look what we've got down to the southwest of us, a very deep area of low pressure indeed. If this is right, that will give us a soakingly wet and windy and cold general election day. I'm not sure what that would do for voter turnout, but it would certainly be a memorable election day to say the least. We finish up on day 10, Friday the 9th of June, with that area of low pressure centred over the top of the country, bringing showers and longer spells of rain. Have to say, this looks like quite an unsettled opening to June. We issued the summer forecast over the weekend. We're going for a very warm summer. Now, just because we've got this unsettled spell coming up through the early part of June, it doesn't really mean all that much for the summer itself. June, particularly early June, is a period where you can get the jet stream ramping up a little bit, sort of return of the westerlies. Other people call it the June monsoon. It doesn't mean a huge amount for the remainder of the summer, so don't be too concerned about the overall summer prospects from what we're seeing here. But it does look like the opening week or so of June is likely to be turning increasingly unsettled. Let's go out beyond that and have a look at the CFS V2 finally for the next month. So again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period taking us from the 30th of May through to the 2nd of June. And what we find for that week, the coming week, is that we've got low pressure out to the north and west. We've got this ridge to the southeast, and we're bringing the flow through something like that. So it's a very good representation of what we'll just be looking at, really, probably turning increasingly unsettled through the opening days of June. We move through to week 2. This is the 6th through to the 12th of June, and this doesn't look very good at all. We've got quite a deep trough out to the west of the country. This ridge is being pushed over to eastern parts of Europe, so that's properly unsettled weather coming in there, with showers and longer spells of rain and quite a strong westerly jet stream as well. Then we go through to week 3, which is the 13th through to the 19th of June. The trough is still there out to the northwest of us, but it looks like it's weakening somewhat. Doesn't really show pressure rising a huge amount, but something must be weakening this trough that's out to the northwest. So I would suspect that what's actually happening here is that through this middle phase of June, we're probably getting heights rising to the south, and that's starting to weaken off this trough. Still probably quite unsettled up to the middle part of June. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 20th through 26th of June. And we've got a nice build of pressure then across Scandinavia and also through central parts of Europe. Still a trough out to the northwest, still quite a deep one as well. So that's still keeping things a little bit unsettled for the northwest. But I think that should be significantly warmer and drier, especially so for the south, as we begin to pull in some much warmer air from southern parts of Europe. So it takes a little while to get there, but the CFS is suggesting, I think, that the second half of June probably sees a return to drier and warmer conditions. However, the first half, particularly the first week to 10 days up to the middle part of the month, is looking really quite unsettled today on these charts. So we may have a couple of weeks of quite unsettled weather to get through before perhaps thinking about turning things drier and warmer, and maybe then starting to set up a warmer pattern for the summer as we go through into the second half of June. Obviously, if these unsettled charts were still to be rolling on into July, then it would start to get a bit concerning in terms of the summer. But it's still very early days for the summer, and you would expect an unsettled spell at some point. So don't be too concerned about the summer overall. But the next week to 10 days, or first week to 10 days of June, certainly looking quite unsettled. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.